So right now we are in another one of those long, boring, rather dull international breaks, and we're all just sitting here waiting for club football to return. However, as I said last month, these breaks are important. It gives us an opportunity to sort of emotionally remove ourselves from the situation. We're not so emotionally up and down about Manchester United every week because we're not playing right now, which actually gives us a really nice opportunity to, again, reflect and sort of recap the lessons that we've learned about the club so far this season. So one thing that we have certainly learned about United so far this season is that as a team, as individuals, we simply have to be more clinical. I think this is a problem that we also had last season, right? We didn't create loads of chances last year, and when we did create them, we struggled to take them. And we often put it down to player quality, right? The likes of Garnacho simply weren't good finishers. This year, I don't feel that is the case. You know, Brian Mbeumo is a good finisher, Šeško is a good finisher, Cunha, when he plays, is a high-level finisher. Last season, one of the best in the Premier League. Yet still this season, Manchester United are struggling to take their opportunities. We've actually created, still, the highest expected goals of every team in the Premier League. We would have been expected normally to score 14 times, yet we've only scored 9. Those numbers are not good enough. You cannot be underperforming your expected goals by 5 and expect to have a good season. So United need to find a way to score more goals to take their chances. Now, of course, there is still that argument about when we are creating chances and opportunities. For example, in the Manchester City game, we keep going back to, did we only create chances once we were already out of the match? Perhaps. But I am still of the opinion that we need to create more chances, but also take those chances, score more goals. I would like to see someone like Šeško getting more opportunities. So far this season, he's only had 11 shots. I also think we need to try and work our way closer to goal before shooting. We've seen several efforts from outside of the penalty area, but basically, wherever we're shooting from, we need to do a better job. We need to make sure the ball is going into the back of the net more regularly. Bruno Fernandes, for example, if he's taking penalties, he needs to be scoring them because you don't very often get opportunities like that. But also, we do need to work our way a little bit closer to goal, create more chances for our striker, and just score more goals because goals win football matches. Now, something else that I have noticed so far this season is that Ruben Amorim certainly seems to value consistency. Now, not necessarily in terms of performance and results, because we have still really been struggling to achieve that. You know, we've struggled to string results together, yet to win back-to-back games in the Premier League, but consistency in terms of the players that he is using, the starting 11s that he are using. You have probably noticed that every week we talk about Manchester United, the players that we have on screen tend to be pretty much the same every week. We just change a couple here and there, and that's because that's how Ruben Amorim has approached the season so far. In fact, so far this season, United have used the second least players. In fact, only 20. Last season, we were in the top 6 for the number of players used. So to go from the top 6 and actually technically join in third to now being in the bottom 2 for number of players used shows that Ruben Amorim is certainly taking his opportunity to try and make his team selection more consistent. Of course, we are helped by the lack of midweek football. Normally, you'd have a European game which you might prioritise, so you chop and change a little bit at the weekend. We haven't had that this season, and we have strived for consistency, particularly, for example, in the backline. Luke Shaw and De Ligt have started every Premier League game so far. Bruno Fernandes, we know, starts at every opportunity, the same with Mbeumo. Šeško is going to start every time that he's available. We're not seeing too many changes from Ruben Amorim, and I'm of the opinion that that is a good thing. Of course, the counter-argument is maybe we should be changing things because we're not playing well. I absolutely get that point and agree with it. But I do think on the flip side of things, if you can get players playing together regularly, they can learn each other's game, they can build understanding, they can build a sort of chemistry, this bond with each other on the pitch, and start to synergize with their movements and the way that they want to play. So, whilst I probably would have made a few more changes, I think it's quite interesting that Ruben Amorim is doing this. However, there is a bad side to this, and that is we've actually got quite a big squad. So to only be using 20 of them is a problem. It means that certain players aren't getting opportunities, and those that have played minutes in the Premier League haven't necessarily played enough. Kobbie Mainoo not really getting a sniff in the team at the moment, apart from the bench. Joshua Zirkzee barely involved at all. These were really important players to us last season, and Kobbie the season before especially. Players like Aidan Heaven not really being given an opportunity yet in the Premier League. So I think this is a positive and a con as well. It's a good thing to try and build that consistency on the pitch and build the spine of your team that you want to lead you moving forward. But also, it's a slight concern, and it is a reflection of the lack of matches. And certain players are missing out as a result, which I just don't like to see, particularly when I think they're good footballers that are missing the opportunities. Now, speaking of consistency, another lesson that we have learned this season is that Matthias de Ligt, when consistently available, can be a very useful player for Manchester United. Last season, he was very much competing for a spot in the team. You know, it was often him or Harry Maguire. They would sort of battle for this middle spot. Yes, occasionally he would play on one of the sides as well, just to get into the team. But this season, he actually feels like pretty much the first name on the team sheet. As I've said already, him and Luke Shaw have started every Premier League game so far. And I think that's a compliment to the pair of them in terms of the consistency, in terms of fitness and availability. That's good. We want that from our centre-backs. We want to be able to rely on them. Particularly in the case of De Ligt, though, not only has he played every week, I think he's played well pretty much every single week so far. I can't really recall him having a poor or a bad game, to be honest. I think he's been one of United's most steady players at the start of the season. If you look at his numbers in terms of defensive actions this season, it's a ridiculous amount. He's been contributing so much to Manchester United from a defensive point of view. And I think this now, for him, really is an opportunity to firstly make himself really the go-to man at United, you know, the go-to centre-back that he's going to play every single week. The player that is our foundation that we build upon. I think he's got that opportunity now. But also the opportunity to start fulfilling his potential. You know, at such a young age, he broke into football at Ajax and was tipped to be this massive, incredible centre-back. He's never quite hit those heights, largely due to inconsistency in his availability with injuries, but also his managers and things like that. De Ligt's now got an opportunity to start fulfilling his potential and to become even a leader in this Manchester United team. Someone that sets the standards, sets the example as a back at the back, is that example for the young players coming through in terms of how you carry yourself week in, week out, in training and on the pitch. I think De Ligt has been a more useful player this season than what I was expecting. I always anticipated that this would be the season where Maguire would play less football and De Ligt would come in, but I wasn't expecting De Ligt to be this good. We've seen him playing a couple of different roles even. We saw one game against Chelsea where he went to the outside and was tasked with being much more aggressive, really stepping forward into midfield, and he even did that job well. When he's in the middle, he's winning his aerial duels, and all round, I just think he's had a good start to the season. Now, the final thing that we have learned is that Ruben Amorim can actually be a bit more flexible tactically than what we all thought, just perhaps not in the way that we expected. Last time we did one of these videos, in the last international break, I sat here and said, United are improving in the first phase. It wasn't perfect, but the football was improving. We saw particularly that first game against Arsenal. I'm not going to bore you with the clips again, but we saw United in that first game, you know, playing out from the back, and De Ligt was a big part of that, using him on the ball to bounce the ball out wide. United really put an emphasis on playing the ball out from the back in that game. What we failed to do was really build upon that and start to develop and sort of add more patterns and more ideas into the first phase. So therefore, we have seen a shift. We have seen Ruben Amorim changing to a much more direct style, which has been discussed a lot by myself over the past week or so. Conversations about whether it's good, whether it's bad, why you would do it, is it sustainable? For all of those points and conversations, make sure to check out the last video. But I think it's definitely something that we've learned from United this season. That Ruben Amorim will change if he doesn't think it's working. Perhaps just not in the way that we would want. He's almost gone even more pragmatic. He's taking less risks. You know, we all agree that playing long ball football is a safer approach to the game because you're not putting the ball at risk in these areas. So that is Ruben Amorim changing in a sense, I feel, adapting to the players that he's got. Perhaps he doesn't feel that his team at the moment is capable of playing through the first phase. Partly, in my opinion, because of how he asks them to do it. I actually think it's sort of his fault a little bit. But I think you've always got to commend a manager that can accept that something isn't working and therefore try something a little bit different. And that difference has been to play long. I think Šeško, we've mentioned it a few times, has been doing a really good job. I think he's had a great start to the season. But his physical work against the centre-backs is so good. And in terms of fixing sort of the top of your team and the bottom of your team, having Le Mans in goal, whose distribution seems pretty good early on, and then having Šeško, who has the physicality to battle, is just a huge upgrade on last season. Last season, Onana's passing was terrible, and Højlund's hold-up play was almost non-existent. So upgrading in both of those areas has given Amorim a different weapon. For me, personally, it's not a bad thing to be able to play long. I think it's actually really useful to be able to do that in modern football. But always, I'm going to ask for a blend. I like that we can go long, but I don't want it to be something that we always do. I want us to be able to play short as well. Play out from the back, play through teams. For me, that's how you really become a good football team. And that's the sort of the next level for United. Get good about long ball, sure. That might even force teams to play a little bit deeper and give us a bit more respect. But if teams do start to do that, let's then put a focus on playing out from the back so that we can do both things. If teams want to press us, we can go long over them, or if teams sit off, then we're capable of playing out from the back. That's what United need to become, a team that can do both and just continue to evolve, really. So yes, those are some of the lessons that we have learned since the last international break. Things are changing at Manchester United. Sometimes for the better, sometimes it's getting worse, which is less than ideal because we don't really have room to get worse. But we are seeing differences. I think we are learning about this United team week by week, and I think we're learning about Ruben Amorim week by week. Again, some of that will be good things, stuff that we like. Some of it will be bad things and things that really make us question the future of this football club. But you can't deny we are learning lessons constantly. You know, De Ligt has become a much more important player for us than what he was last year. We are using a much smaller squad than what we did last year, being more consistent with our 11 on the pitch. We need to take our chances. That is definitely something that Manchester United need to do. But I also think we need to get better at creating chances, and we need more sustainable ways of moving forward. These are some of the lessons that I've learned about United so far this season, but there's plenty more. Plenty more. And I'd like to hear them from you guys in the comments down below. What have you learned about Manchester United so far this season? And what can we really take from those lessons and apply to the team moving forward? Let me know in the comments. And also, whilst you're there, could you please leave a like, subscribe, and get notifications on, please? That would be greatly appreciated. But apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.